April 29th of 2025. For those date watchers out there, Brendan Martin, executive producer in Ocala, got a great show today. Join us and subscribe. I like the coffee cup, Brendan. That's the cheeseburger coffee cup.
That's the cheeseburger
I like
mug midweek.
Take a picture with your phone on your of the QR code. We're live on X, YouTube, Facebook, 7 channels. And then, hey, remember, if you ever miss us live, just watch us later and share it with your friends. Tell them all about it. We got shows nonstop, morning to night on this channel, on our YouTube channel. So glad to have you. We got Chris Plank, the sideline reporter for the Oklahoma Sooner Football Network, joins us in the first quarter, followed by Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. 14 dogs drafted. Wow. They just keep loading up every year. It's amazing. Second half, the Yancy Porter Rebel Yell Hotline, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. Let's go right to Chris Plank like they do in the games. Head down on the sidelines. Plank, what do you got? Kind of like Larry Munson to Lauren Smith. Chris, welcome aboard. I know it's busy this time of morning, always around the house with young kids, and thank you for joining us. I got to say, one of the biggest additions that people are just not talking about enough is a guy we've had on the show a number of times that I met down in Mobile about 4 years ago, Jim Nagy, former executive director of the Senior Bowl. He knows football, and that's kind of like having Bobby Beathard build your program. I think it's the most significant off-season, off-the-field hire in college football this year.
I think it's
crazy.
No, not at all. I'll tell you the one thing that is wild about it is, you think about this role of general manager and, and this is no offense to the person who did it before, Curtis Lofton was kind of following that trend of a handful of former players, right? Yeah. Andrew Luck, who, by the way, seems to have a lot of power at Stanford, right? But that general manager role hadn't been really defined. And you didn't really think of like a true NFL GM type of a mindset.
Yeah.
And then you started seeing some, like Mike Lombardi joins Bill Belichick up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then whenever Oklahoma announced Jim Nagy, you're like, heck, that's about as perfect of a fit as you can get for a guy that interviewed for the Jets GM job, has run the Senior Bowl for a while, and just an all-around good guy that loves football. So I'm with you, Rob. It's been huge. He's, I think the term that my dad would use a lot was his hair's on fire right now. They're building a staff, and he just added to his staff last night. So, but in that process, they've added some pretty good pieces to this Oklahoma football team, and it's been really well received and a good working relationship between he and Brent and the staff to get things going here this offseason.
Well, you got a fan base that's conditioned to winning. It's like muscle memory index. If you grew up running, it doesn't take you but 2 or 3 weeks. If you take off, you'll get back to it. 52 conference championships, 7 national championships, 7 Heisman trophies, Gaylord Family Stadium, Owen. It's so iconic, the brand. But, last year Texas was more prepared. You know that. I mean, but also you lost your entire offensive line, top 6 receivers. What's changed besides Washington State supplying the world with another potentially great core? What is it about Pullman, Washington? Brendan, have any of y'all ever been there?
I haven't been there. Have you been there, Brendan?
Apparently nobody wants to stay.
We got Kelvin Sampson from there.
I don't even know where Washington is, so it's cool.
Last year was, listen, you're talking about having the Georgia guy on later and 14 Bulldogs drafted. If you guys talk Texas had an incredible year in the draft. Oklahoma had 2 guys drafted, and they went in the 4th round. It's just that's not the amount of talent that you should have. And there's no finger. I mean, we could sit here and point fingers on the fact that only, 4 guys remain from the class that was 2022. I mean, that's like wild. But it's college football today. Everyone's pretty much going through it. So Oklahoma had to go out and reload. Last year you mentioned the receiver injuries are still going to go down as one of the wildest storylines that we've had in Norman in a long time. Because, Rob, every single week, there was a story that one of these guys is on their way back. And guess when they came back? They didn't. Every single week it was, hey, I hear there's a chance Nick Anderson could play. plays against Tennessee, thrown at once. That was his season. That was it. Never came back. So it was just weird. I can't think of any other way to put it. So, it's funny because they went out and they restocked the receiver room this year. Getting Deion Burks back was a big surprise in my world. But they get a guy named Giovanni Gibson. He was out of Arkansas Pine Bluff, had some big numbers. You don't know how that's going to, work in the SEC when you're playing in the SWAC. But, man, he went out and he was balling. I mean, he was balling. And what happened? He broke his leg. So it's almost like that receiver room is kind of cursed right now.
Yeah.
As we're talking, they're still working on one more potential, maybe two in the portal. But I have no answers for how that could get that wonky last year. And then the offensive line just was never settled. Kind of thinking about last year, when we came out of spring ball in Norman, just as, fans and people who cover the team, Oklahoma had a third string walk-on that was taking snaps at center. That's how beat down they were at center. They had, backups at every position because of injuries, and no one really had time to get any reps. When they got into the season, it was not good. I think you could even debate if it kind of warped the, development of Jackson Arnold, and I'm sure it did. I expect him to have a great year at Auburn this year, but you leave this year out of spring ball, you're like, well, they got depth on the offensive line. They got 2 freshmen 5-stars in Foji and Susi that have a chance to play. They worked the portal to get a couple guys in here. So it's, Rob, they saw the issues they had last year and they tried to get better. And you're right. This is a very tradition-rich program that is not just going to sit by and say, well, we just can't spend that money. They're going to go do what they can to compete in the SEC.
You talked about the quarterbacks. You had a legacy player took over last year, Hawkins.
Michael Hawkins.
And Michael Hawkins could run, but you're looking for that total quarterback.
Right.
And so you bring in Mateo from
John
Mateer from Washington State. He looks the part. And now Brent Venables, who's one of the greatest defensive coordinators we've seen. That 10-year run he had at Clemson. Ellis Johnson's on our show every week. He goes to practice at Clemson 2 or 3 times a week. His son's on the team there. Ellis has been around a long time. Brent Venables is way up here. He's going to now be running that defense, kind of like Nick Saban did for a lot of the years at Alabama. I think you're in for some really good times if the offense can go, because the defense will be rolling.
And that's where they return their most talent. Let's be honest about it. There wasn't a lot of hitting the portal and rebuilding there. They brought in a defensive tackle in this portal season for a little depth there. There was a moment where we had quite the drama 2 weekends ago. Whenever you try to get me on, and softball dominates my life this time of year. But David Stone that went in the portal and then came out. It's just very rare where you go in and you come back and you return to Oklahoma, and he'd had a great spring. So, Jaden Jackson had been good. He missed the spring with a shoulder injury. But they really only had to go out and add one piece, and that was Kendall Daniels, the Oklahoma State transfer, who's going to factor in at their cheetah, their bandit, their whatever term you want to use, their Roy back. And they look really good. They had a really good spring. Now, it is interesting because I think Brent's been pretty open about it, right? He's like, hey, we span the globe. They talked to Jim Knowles from Ohio State, who's now at Penn State. They were in on that conversation. Nate Dreiling came here as a linebackers coach. They talked to him. And whenever they went through every name, Brent Venables said, I think I'm the guy to call the defense. And it's a hot seat season, right? You can't have the record through the first 3 years and not see a dramatic improvement in that 4th year and expect to get to hang around. This is a program that's not going to play with that. But in that same vein, outside of Brendan's schedule down in Gainesville, I think we're right there, 1A, with one of the toughest schedules heading into 2026 or 2025.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting to see how the expectations either kind of level out where they're like, hey, we're playing better, but it's a tough schedule. Or, maybe you start hot, you beat Florida and Miami, or Michigan, and then those expectations just fly through the roof. So you're right. That's their strength. It's defense. And in a make or break season, I kind of feel like Brent Venables said, I'm going to bet on me.
Well, and I think it's going to be harder and harder to fire coaches if the House settlement goes through, because you're going to have to tack on $21.5 million on top of any buyout that you do. So I think we didn't see anybody get fired last year. And I think a lot of that was anticipation of House. You mentioned softball. Would y'all build a $35 million standalone
Yeah.
softball?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Love's Field. This is the second year that we've been in it. I would say it's the first year that we've been full tenants in it as a softball program. But Rob, it's amazing. I mean, it really truly is, and it's kind of cool because it's hard to justify in this like today a true investment into a non-revenue sport. Let's just be honest, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's got to find that $21 million, and not everyone has a Boone Pickens that'll cut you a check and make it all right. So they rebuilt the golf facility. They're doing things to the baseball stadium. They're rebuilding the women's gym and men's gym facility. And then boom, right in the middle of it is Love's Field. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And they're good. They graduated, I think it was like 10, 11 seniors from last year, and they're number one in the country again. So it's one of those when you come to Norman now, you want to see the football stadium, right? And then you're like, hey, where's Love's Field? I want to go see the softball arena, so our stadium. It's really cool, man. They did a great job with it.
There are three things you do when you travel now. You go to pilot stations, go Vols. That's the Haslams, Tennessee people. You go to Buc-ee's, that's Aggie people.
Right.
You go to Love's,
that's OU people.
Net worth of well over $9 billion. I think they can handle the 35. They found it in the couch cushion.
Hey, I'll tell you what, and the slideshow is awesome because you're just seeing the passion from those fans. I think that's even from this week.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think that's from this week. They did the bronze statue of Coach Gasso. She's the only non-football, player to have a bronze statue on campus right now. It's glorious, right? But Love's is an incredible partner for not just OU, not just the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the entire community. They've really invested themselves, and it's a great family. You guys know Gabe Eichert, who's down on the sidelines with me, former OU offensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's married into the Love's family, and they're great people, man. You love to have a family and a business that cares that much, not just about athletics and the community, but women sports, and it's made a big difference for OU.
Oklahoma's pretty much every sport you think about, they're great. Before we let you go, give me right now, when you came out of spring practice, have you had a chance to talk with Jim Nagy about his role and what he's doing?
I'm over on getting to talk to Nagy. When he talked to everyone at spring ball, I was with OU softball in Alabama, and then when he did his interview to start things off this season, he talked to Toby. He seems very confident. He seems very set. Now he just added a staff member last night. It's going to look different. I think you're going to see they're going to go after dudes that are NFL caliber player. You have to in the SEC. But so far, Rob, his plan has been strong, and it's been really fun to kind of see a dude that we've known and heard so much now working at Oklahoma and implementing his plan in Norman. It's been a really good addition. He's something else.
Sweeten the pot to get that interview. FedEx in some fresh Gulf Coast seafood, okay? Because he's been in the field, and some Reese's Pieces. But I mean it's going to be fun. Let's get you back on again next week more often.
Anytime you guys want.
A busy schedule. But tell people how they can follow you, and then go have a great day.
Yeah, really easy, Rob. Just find me on Twitter or X, whatever you call it now. I'm at Plank Show, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Appreciate it so much. Go Sooners.
See you guys.
Right.
Sooner.
Boomer Sooner. I love this, man. Let's go to Jordan Hill right now. 24/7 Sports on Georgia. Got out of the driveway a few minutes late. Appreciate your patience this morning, Jordan. 13 dogs, 14 Buckeyes, 13 dogs. That is, in the last 6 years, 62 dogs drafted. And a lot of them are playing for the Philly Dogs. But what's your takeaway? Any surprises? Were you shocked at anything? The Falcons took a good one, and they took two good ones. But can they find a way to make it work?
Yeah, that might be the most shocking thing. The Atlanta Falcons, my favorite team, actually did something smart by drafting Jalen Walker. On the whole, I don't know if there was a ton of shocks. 13 drafted, like you said. The craziest thing, I saw the stat bouncing around on Twitter Thursday night. At this point, Kirby Smart has more first-round draft picks, which is 20, than he does losses at Georgia, which is 19. That's just absurd, and that kind of shows.
It does. Okay. We can't hear you, Brendan.
We lost you, Jordan. Are you there?
Jordan, we lost you. Can't hear the.
And Jordan.
Jordan. Okay.
Jordan, maybe come back out and come back in if you would, sir. Let's try
Yeah.
that out and see if that works.
Okay. Yeah.
We lost his audio.
Brendan,
It was a little low.
and speaking of the draft too, God, Florida ended up having a bunch. I mean, kind of goes along that blue chip index, but you just reload. But that stat,
Florida is not. Last year was 1. So
yeah, and then you get what,
Ricky
8 this year. Yeah,
I don't know what the total was.
and Ricky Purcell goes out in the first round. According to gets shot. Yeah. So I think you're seeing you've got to have Oklahoma with only 2. A lot of these SEC former powers, just man, they are struggling. And it's the hard thing is how you're going to have any depth in today's world. And Kirby Pullen have 13 players drafted, and they had, like last year, they had 5 5-stars leave and maybe 6 4-stars go into the portal. It was amazing. But Brent, we got you back here, Jordan Hill. I don't know. We got some gremlins out there today.
Jordan, if you could boost your audio and your end a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry about that. It seemed to be gremlins out there, and there's a lot of solar flares going around. I mean, there's only 2 countries lost power last night. So
Brendan, don't lie to me. I started talking all the Georgia guys you're
I was
after.
like, this guy.
You cut my feed.
Hear this guy again with this Georgia talk. I just won the national championship. I don't want to do this right now.
Hey, you know what's crazy? It's like turbulence when you're flying in a plane going through thunderstorms. The internet, I've learned. The web world does the same thing. Let's get back in here with Georgia. 62 guys the last 6 years. That's an unbelievable number. The number of first round picks. And I was talking when you were off for a sec. You had last year maybe 5 5-stars leave the program, 6 4-stars, and then 5 3s. I think there was like 15, 16 guys. And you still, got into the playoffs, won the SEC. How deep can Georgia go though compared to before NIL? Kind of make a comparison if you can.
Well, it's hard to do because I think Kirby Smart and the staff deserve a lot of credit. As much as things have changed in the last few years, I mean they just keep retaining and signing top classes. I think the biggest thing is the fact that Georgia does not have the depth that it had 5 years ago, but I think you'd say that for any major team because they're losing those guys. I remember last year, Kirby talking about, guys who used to be your second or third string, have decided, look, I'm going to leave and I'll go to a Vanderbilt or I'll go to a Kentucky and start. And, that's totally within their right to do. And yeah, I mean, I recorded an episode of Bud Elliott's Summer School for 24/7 Sports. I'm not sure when that'll come out, but we were talking about what the expectations are for Georgia this season, and I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I think they have to go to the playoff and at least win one playoff game for this to be considered a success. You say that, and you understand what they lost off this last team. You lose your starting quarterback. You lose some big-time defenders, as we talked about, 3 guys that were picked in the first round. Some experienced guys like Dan Jackson and several defensive linemen. But then you look at what's coming up, and, Rob, we talk about these signing classes, these recruiting classes full of 4-stars and 5-stars. So, there's going to be some growing pains, I think, early in the year, but you benefit by having a very manageable non-conference schedule. And, the biggest early test is at Tennessee, and we don't know what Tennessee is going to be after the Nico situation. So, yeah, I mean, the bar is high at Georgia, but I don't know that it's necessarily changed at all in the NIL era. And I would say Kirby Smart and his staff deserve a lot of credit because I think they've navigated it well. They've done a very good job, in my mind, of changing with the times, but not changing their philosophy or how they go about signing guys. I mean, Kirby's been pretty honest in saying, look, if money's the biggest factor for you, you're probably not coming to Georgia. That doesn't mean you're not going to make money at Georgia, but they want guys driven to go out there and chase their potential. And, Kirby has said more often than not, if money's the driving force, you're probably not going to be wanting to do that.
Well, Tony Vitello said that a couple of years ago at Tennessee. Don't come here with your hand out, and he's still getting great players. I think that they see through that. Thinking about this, what's the collective called at Georgia? NIL.
That is the Classic City Collective. So
okay,
the triple C's there with the Classic City Collective.
All right. So you look at Dabo at Clemson. He's going to have a pretty damn good team this year, and he's there. For the record, we all know guys have always transferred. But I think it's if you bring in 25 or 30 guys, that's a big mess potentially. You bring in half a dozen like Georgia and Clemson do that are a perfect fit for the culture. What's really different than the way it used to be other than the NIL?
I mean, not much. And that's what, I felt like last year, that Ole Miss team, to me, that was going to be the test. If you could come in with pretty much a portal team and win. And they had a good season. But I think if you talk to most Ole Miss fans, they would say that they did not meet the expectation. I think that the expectation was to make the playoff, to, potentially play in that SEC title game. And, that loss to Brendan's Gators there late in the year ended the threat of that for Ole Miss. So I think you hit the nail on the head, Rob. I don't think you can be on one of the two extremes with the portal. I don't think you can say no portal, we're not doing it, we're going to recruit the high school ranks. But I also don't think going in and getting 20, 25 guys out of the portal, I don't think that's a recipe for success. Now, sometimes coaches have no choice. Like, I think especially like a first-year coach, sometimes there's just an exodus on your roster where that's the only way you can do it. But I think living and dying by the portal is just not a means to go win a championship. Now, you could have good seasons. That was still a very good Ole Miss season.
Yeah.
But if the goal is to win a national title, I just don't know that going out and getting 20 guys out of the portal is the way to do it.
Yeah, it's dangerous just from a cultural standpoint. Kirby always says, I want our guys that have come up through our program, talk, if you will, about the coaching staff makeup. And God bless him, man. Mike Bobo just gets blamed for famine, drought, pestilence, disease. He gets blamed for everything. This guy could not survive as long as he has, unless he's good enough. I mean, you know him, you're around him, but he is such a scapegoat among Georgia fans. Okay. In Kirby's run since 2016, you've got 19 losses total. And Mike Bobo hadn't been there the whole time. He was there for 14 of the 15 years with Mark Richt. What about the offensive mindset at Georgia and what they've got to work with in that quarterback room? Again, Gunner, Stockton, everybody's watching.
Yeah, you talking about Mike Bobo. I was visiting my dad the other day, and my dad stubbed his toe and blamed Mike Bobo. Like, what did he have to do with anything with that? But I mean,
the market's down. It's Bobo.
Exactly. And the thing I would hit on too there, I am really confident if Kirby Smart thought Mike Bobo was holding him back, that Mike Bobo would not be there. And I think because Kirby's a competitive guy, I don't think that, he would just say, well, this is my friend, I'm going to keep him around. But yeah, I mean, the offense, to me, my biggest takeaway from the spring, they are in position to be very, very successful. I think they have a chance to have a bounce back year. And to me, the two phases that I'm looking at and the two things that I'm paying attention to once the season starts with the offensive line. They lost 3 guys that were drafted, another guy that wound up signing an undrafted free agent deal, 4 starters from last year. So they've got guys to replace there. And to kind of complicate that, 2 of the guys that I think will be starting, one missed the entire spring. That's the left tackle Monroe Freeling after having shoulder surgery. And then the other one, Daniel Calhoun, he got hurt maybe a little bit past the halfway point of spring. And it wasn't a serious injury, but it happened just at a point where it was like, okay, he's not going to come back for the rest of spring. So that's a big question there. And then the other one's the obvious one. The other one is the one we're going to be talking about in June and July and August. It's Gunner Stockton.
Yeah.
Because I think that they've done a very good job of reloading around him. I think that the receiver room this year, to me, is night and day compared to last year. And I mean that as a compliment. I think this is a very deep, very talented receiver room coming off a year where Georgia led the nation in drops, and you just don't expect that from a team of Georgia's caliber. So a lot's going to be put on Gunnar Stockton. We've heard great things behind the scenes. His teammates love him. Anytime his name comes up among his teammates, they just they rave about him. But he's going to be out there, and in the line of fire, and we're going to have to see if he can manage it. And I don't know that he's going to be an all SEC caliber quarterback, but you don't have to hit that level with a team as talented as Georgia to contend for a national title, and we're just going to have to see if he can meet the moment.
Another one about Kirby, our intern, Oakley McFerrin, he's got 3 friends on the team at Tennessee. He went to MBA up in Nashville, and his own quarterback, Marcel Reed's at A&M. He said all 3 of those guys in that locker room at Tennessee told him independently, they said, man, everybody loved Nico. His dad, another story, just real pushy. I can't imagine a father trying to pull that crap with Kirby Smart. That it could get ugly real fast. I mean, because he's like, hey, I'm the coach.
Yeah, I don't think it would get you very far. I think it's a situation where, especially to where Georgia is now, I mean, compare the 2 situations between Tennessee and Georgia, especially before Tennessee got Nico. They had done a very good job. Josh Heupel had kind of built that up. But if you're Josh Heupel and you're like, I really feel like we're a quarterback away from maybe winning a national title, you might be willing to concede a little bit. You might be willing to put up with an overbearing parent, which there's plenty of those guys. I'm not naive in thinking that Nico's dad is the only one out there.
He's got plenty of friends.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but when you're in Georgia's spot, especially now with Kirby Smart, like he's not going to take on unnecessary headaches. He's won 2 national titles, and he's got the point where if there's a guy they really like, but it's going to be a headache, look, they probably can find another guy of a similar skill set and not have those headaches and go get him instead. So, there's part of me that I do feel really bad for Tennessee being put in that situation. I applaud them for saying, look, we're not playing ball. This is what you got. If you want to go somewhere else, go. And, I'm not convinced in the long run that UCLA move is going to really pay off for Nico. So, yeah, it's a difficult situation. But like you said, Rob, I think Kirby Smart, he's kind of got his principles, and he'll play ball to a certain point. But I don't know. It wouldn't have been very pretty, I don't think, had something like that played out at Georgia.
Yeah. All right, one more before you go, and let people, of course, tag out, let people know how they can follow you, and always appreciate you sharing our show and retweeting, and let us know what we can do to help you with your brand. But what are you writing about? People need to be watching, because your website, again, it's a constant flow of information on Georgia, but also commentary on sports as well, and it's first class.
I appreciate that, Rob. I will shout out my coworker, Ben Wolk. He's making the rounds at several Georgia high schools this week, so I'd encourage folks to keep an eye out over at dogs247.com. He's been posting updates on several 2026, 2027, probably some 2028 recruits along the way. As far as me, starting to ride on some of the guys they've added from the portal this spring. Already wrote about Elo Medosi, an outside linebacker they got from Army. Today I'll write about Josh McCray, a running back they got from Illinois. I think he's going to kind of be that thunder to Nate Frazier's lightning. Real physical back, guy that can bounce off of would-be tacklers. Really like his film. We'll write on the 2 other guys they got from the portal in the spring with Josh Horton from Miami, and they also got a center from Central Florida. And then, a little bit of basketball coverage. They added 2 guards on Monday, Jordan Ross and Marcus Millender. Millender, who has a nickname Smurf, which I'm a big fan of that.
I love it.
About him. It's great. And follow along on dogs247.com on Twitter, at Jordan Davis Hill on Twitter, at dogs247. After the draft, things kind of start slowing down, but we'll always find something to talk about and always find something to write about.
I know too many Georgia fans. They want to hear anything. I mean, what time do they get up in the morning? So I promise you, there's always an appetite for it, Jordan. So thank you so much. We'll do it again next week.
All
right, Brendan. I want to go back and ask you something. I get so many people. I want to say this about Winter Timber Outdoors first. They're open every day of the week, every day in Athens, Alabama. They're building stores. They got one under construction right now. in Auburn, the footprint of the SEC, everything you need for the outdoor life. All your firearms, your turkey hunting gear, turkey calls, snake boots, ground blinds. Of course, duck hunting gets here. You better be preparing for duck season now. You better make sure your farmer's planning the right way. They've got corn for your deer plots. They have all the clothing. Sitka outdoor gear, Dixie decoys, duck camp, all your Yeti coolers, anything that they make. A huge selection of clothing, men's and women's, the outdoor life. They got all the collegiate polos. They've got Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn polos. As they grow in the footprint of the SEC, they want to put a store in every town. Look for them coming near you, and order online, Winter Timber Outdoors. Love them as a sponsor. Brendan, here's a question, and I see text, you and I both do, on Twitter, X, all day long, every day. People are saying, this is AI or what? What is happening right now? How much of what we see on X, that's these constant, some of these people, they're unnamed, how much of it's AI?
I don't think anyone more than people really want to know the truth. I think that's the truth. People, I guess you just don't really know until you look at it like I do. But at the end of the day, is more people have talked to bots than you think, and more people have talked to AI than you think, because that's replacing most of the internet and how it sort of functions. But it's a bigger conversation because AI literally changes every day, and grows bigger, faster and stronger. So we're planning, now that we're national championship Florida Gators basketball teams, excuse me, sorry, now that we're the natty, or get the hardware, we can focus on all these other things, and we're going to have an AI in sports here shortly to discuss what's happening, because we are reaching further now. It's not just we had a language model with ChatGPT, and now we have AI agents, and then we are reaching what's called AGI, and we'll discuss what that means down the road. But it's a little freakier than you think. Yancy Porter joins us here, and I think Rodney Orr is also in.
Rodney in the holding. Here they come, guys. Hey, we had some internet gremlins out there today, so we were late getting out of the driveway. But thank God, Brendan Martin is our pilot. Nothing to see here. Just move along. So Rodney Orr,
I'm a country boy.
Hey, he's smart. But Rodney Orr,
Rodney, hi, Yancy.
How you doing? How you guys doing today?
Good.
Rodney, I want to say something right now. You're worth more than $48 a year, but you can subscribe to Tider Insider.
$49.25.
That's right. Tider Insider since 1996. If you want to know what's going on inside with the Tide, be a subscriber to Tider Insider. And Yancy Porter, Monday nights, folks, catch it. Sports 56, WHBQ, and Super Talk Mississippi. He and Chuck Roundsville and the gang, Gordon when he's on there, Gary Darby, they let you know what's going on with Ole Miss, and they are insiders, both of these guys. So let's let her rip, man. Yancy, want to start with Ole Miss, one of the top. They were like 5th most players drafted. They were number 5 with 8. Man, and Ole Miss fans, they're kind of like, in the movie Jaws, when the shark came back, he goes, I think he's back for his noon feeding. He goes, we're going to need a bigger boat. You going to need a bigger stadium?
Well,
But that was anticlimactic.
kind of damn if you do, damn if you don't. Right now, with the NIL, the pricing is just going absolutely crazy. Guys, I heard that Kentucky has upped their NIL for basketball now to $22 million. It's serious. I mean, starters are $2 million. Championship level rotation players are $1.5 million in hoops. So do you spend hundreds of millions of dollars on additions and refurbishing stadiums, or do you put it into the players so you can win games. Because I don't really think the players care if you got 70 or 75,000, or they only care about what affects them, right? The practice facilities and money in their pockets. So it's difficult times right now for colleges to try to do facility upgrades.
Well, it really is, and we've been talking about that, Rodney. And it goes back to really Ole Miss started this trend when they were going to do the $350 million fit on Vaught Hemingway Stadium, and it shifted to NIL. Rodney, are we going to see facilities get back to? Some of them are just like UCLA, for instance. They had to join the Big Ten because they didn't have any money to speak of. But Alabama, remember during the virus when your athletic director launched the 10-year, $600 million capital campaign? How's that going?
Yeah, Rob, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I mean, who knows? Right now, it's like Yancey said. I mean,
And Rodney, well, let me say this. Rodney, are you back with us? Okay. But
I'm here. Can you hear me, Rob?
yeah, we got you. And then
Okay.
after you come out, I want to give you an update that Brendan just sent me. It's not really breaking news, but it's specific news. But carry on.
No, I was only going to say that Yancey said how much, $2 million for a starter and hoop. That's this year, and that's what Yancey meant. But I mean, what's it going to be 2 years from now? What's that 2 million going to be?
Yeah.
What is it going to be? Is it going to be 4 million?
Yeah. I mean, I think
that's you look at $22 million. I think that's what Ohio State spent for this championship team. That was for football,
yeah.
and now Kentucky's.
Yeah, let me say something real quick that Brendan just sent me. Key changes in this House settlement include the possibility of increasing scholarship allocations and sports-specific roster limits, allowing schools to expand football rosters from 85 to 105 and baseball from 11.7 to 34 scholarships. These shifts are likely to ignite, I agree, Title IX lawsuits concerning gender equity in scholarship distribution. I'm going to tell you what, folks, we better be real careful because, it's kind of putting it in the face of the women's sports. Kentucky saying we're spending $22 million on men's basketball. Man, I can't even imagine what's going through all the Title IX attorneys out there. This could get crazy. And guys, everybody listen. Hello, Peter Riley and Tyler, Alabama, watching, and Perry Mason. I wish we could send you some rain because we've had so much flooding up here in Memphis, and the planters are on their second. They may go to a third planting up here to try to get the crops in, but it's going to be crazy to watch. But Yancey, you heard what I just said about 85 to 105. Isn't the SEC stuck on 85? Is that what they're saying? But you got to have walk-ons. You can't take the walk-ons away, or you shouldn't.
Yeah, the SEC said that they're sticking with 85. Now the baseball scholarships, they're they're moving the rosters down from, I believe, from 42 or 3 to 35 next year. Golf scholarships are going down from some are up to as many as 13, 14 right now. I think you can carry down to 8. They're going to be cutting down, despite what the courts are saying to expand the scholarships. They're going to be cutting to move it down. The budgets overall in the SEC. So I don't know as far as Title Nine. They have the original ruling was that it did not affect Title IX with NIL. Then towards the end, the department came out with the Biden administration, said that it did. And then obviously when Trump got elected, it said it did not. So it's a moving target right now, so the way that the courts are ruling on all of these rulings.
Yeah. Well, getting and it's worth watching. Okay, let's get back. I got a question here from Clarence Beeks for Rodney. Clarence asks, it's a text. He's an Alabama fan, and he says, "We hear that Ty Simpson is the man at Alabama. Talk about Keelan Russell, the kid from Dallas that's coming in. Do you see a legitimate quarterback battle, or is it already decided that Ty Simpson out of Martin, Tennessee, Westview High School, who came in as a 5-star, is the next Alabama quarterback?"
Yeah, it's not decided. I mean, I think certainly Ty Simpson is in position to be the guy. I think he had a good spring. He was more consistent than the young two guys, Austin Mack and Keelan Russell. Now, both those guys flashed a lot of ability, just inconsistency in their decision making, and made some mistakes. But yeah, it depends on how does this go over between now and August, and what happens in August camp. But right now, yeah, Ty's the guy in terms of where his position is, and he's at the top of the pecking order. He's going to have to lose it, or somebody's going to have to take it from him.
Yeah. Well, the one thing we know, Yancey, is that fans are never wrong. And the one series that Austin Simmons ran against Georgia last November, he's going to New York, isn't he? I mean, he looks to be he looks really talented. And I think Brendan and Buddy were telling me he reclassified. I know he did out of high school from Florida, but Lane Kiffin is very good at developing quarterbacks. How deep is the quarterback room at Ole Miss?
Well, I mean, they feel really, really, really good about where they are as the starter. But then, their backup right now broke his finger. Talking about Maddox from Oak Grove, he was a true freshman this past year, so this will be his second spring going under. And then they picked up a transfer portal from a quarterback that's um, was D2 last year. So you definitely want to keep your fingers crossed Simmons stays healthy. I'll say that.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question for you, Rodney. And I agree with what Shoney's saying down in Valdosta. Quinn Ewers, he's an example, was allegedly offered $8 million to go to another school because, to play his last year. He chose to go to the draft. That's final, isn't it? I mean, he's been drafted. Yeah. So there's no way he could say, well, as a 7th-round pick, I might make $600,000. Yeah. No, I'm going back to college for another year. There's no way he can reverse that decision, correct?
Well, you would think, but if someone challenges it, it would be interesting. Yeah. There was some talk that maybe Shadur might challenge it. I mean, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen, but if someone challenged it, I guess it's possible that, I mean, after all we've seen, all the changes, I don't say anything's impossible, but you're right. It's the way the rule is now is, it's his college career has ended.
Well, in the environment that we're in right now, I'm sure he could find a sympathetic judge if he tried it, but it'd be interesting to see if he does. All right, let's go back and forth here. I want to ask both of y'all. Start with you, Yancy. Heading into this 2025 football season, you've got some schools like Florida, like Auburn, that have been lost in the wilderness for the last, 4 or 5 years. They're, it looks like, ascending back up. Ole Miss, the portal class that you brought in, it's pretty strong. Do you see Ole Miss dropping at all from what they've been doing? 3 top 12 finishes in Lane Kiffin's first 5 years, and they've only had 4 in the last 50, and he's been there for 3 of them.
Yeah, man, look, I think this could be a top 12 team. I thought Ole Miss was one of the 3 or 4 best teams without question last year. Now, they didn't prove it out on the field because they stumbled against Florida, against LSU, against Kentucky. But I thought they were one of the top 3 or 4 teams without question. Are they going to be that kind of level? I doubt it. Can they be, an 8 to 10 to 12 level where they actually ended up in rankings last year? Certainly they can next year.
And Rodney, at Alabama, the expectations are as high as you can get. And the first year, what really do this for kind of Cliff Note version? 9-4 your first year. You had won 10 or more games every year, starting with the 2008 season. What's the minimum number that you can win? What do you got to win this year? I mean, they're not going to do anything to Kalen DeBoer. It's too expensive to get rid of coaches right now. But he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't have his ideal quarterback, but he had to go and he had to play Jalen Milroe because he may have lost some of the skill players because they were in Jalen's camp. But it just looks like Ty Simpson and Austin Mack, those kind of guys, Keelan Russell, are more of what he needs to run his system in the ideal world, if there's such a thing. Am I right? Rodney. We have lost Rodney. Hopefully Rodney will be back. But Yancy, you see where I'm going with that? On
Yeah,
Can
man.
you keep-
There's
yeah.
no question.
Rodney, you back? Yeah, go ahead.
There's Rodney.
Yeah, I mean, you know, uh, Rob, I think you're right. I mean, the personnel is moving more in a direction that fits what um, Kalen DeBoer wants, of what he's looking for, what he needs for his system. Ryan Grubb. So, yeah, I think that part of it is good. You ask about how many wins. I think enough wins to get into the playoffs, whatever that is, and it's to me it looks like it's 10, but it could be different this year. But I think you got to get in the playoffs, and like you said, That's not saying he's going to be fired if he doesn't. That's not it at all. I just think that for fans to say, okay, we're moving in the right direction. We feel confident that what Kalen DeBoer, his program, in succeeding Nick Saban, getting us into the playoffs, and I think that fans that would kind of be their feeling. Now, again, I say that, but you know how it is. You get in the playoffs and they're like, well, you should have made a deep run. You should have won the national championship. But I'll say something too about Ole Miss. Yancey said that, he didn't think that they would be quite what they were last year in terms of their potential. But you just never know you never know about a chemistry of a team. There was a lot of expectations at Ole Miss last year. And sometimes those expectations can get you. And they probably did in a couple of games with Ole Miss, probably LSU, probably Kentucky. So you just never really know. You never know about the chemistry of a team.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, Yancey, you look at Lane Kiffin, he seems so happy in Oxford. And that's huge, isn't it? Because you've chronicled this. His kids coming back, his son, his daughter, how happy that can make a man. And then you top that off with making over $9 million a year in a place like Oxford. And by the way, did you go to Double Decker last weekend? I'm sure you were there.
Well, of course I did.
Is
Yeah,
the Pope
of
Catholic?
course I was there. But
he was.
but yeah, his ex-wife has also moved to Oxford as well. So he's got all his family here. His brother lives literally in Lane's old house, and Lane moved next door. So his mom lives here. Everybody's here. So he's got everybody from all over the country. They've all settled here in Oxford, and I really do. I think Lane's here for the long haul now. I wouldn't have said that even 2 years ago, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's at Ole Miss for 10, 12, 14 years. Now, if the right NFL job became open, that would be a different scenario. Lane was Lane made a lot of news when he said he thought Saban would be in the NFL shortly. So you never know with these teams, but I think Lane's I think he's hunkered down. He's recruiting at a different level right now, on the high school level even. I think he's very settled. I'll put it that way.
All right. Next question. I'm going to go outside of our comfort zone here. Start with Rodney. Do you all foresee the way things are going in college athletics? Because Title IX is going to pop up and it's going to get crazy. Do you all see corporate ownership of college football teams? The ExxonMobil Ole Miss Rebels. I mean, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
We don't, you talk about private equity, venture capital people, and I can assure you, these are not the Boy Scouts and Mother Teresa. These people want a return on investment. They will not be happy. We better watch out where we're going and try to have some structure here. But are you hearing any crazy stuff like that? Because it's a possibility, I think.
I think it's a possibility. Now, again, I don't know what the chances of it are, but I mean, it certainly sounds like if it keeps heading in this direction, because like I said earlier, Yancy said, 2 million for a SEC basketball starter right now. Well, like I said, next year it's going up. So yeah, I could see that. I just really wonder what kind of impact that would have on the fans. The following, the interest in college football, it's changed so dramatically, and that would be a significant change. And I just sense right now, and again, I'm going by fandom on my Tighter Insider.
Yeah.
There's interest is slipping.
That is the canary in the coal mine. That's where I was going with that. Yancy, same question, but in Oxford.
Yeah, man, you can't sustain these rates. $5 million for a roster in basketball was very, very competitive this past year. And now, Kentucky's setting the bear over 20 million. I mean, that's quadrupled in one
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So where does it go? Right. And the courts will have to do something about this. If not, and then it will have to go corporate. And then, the key to all this, the only way to really to get a stranglehold on this is to make the players employees. And until they do that, when you make them employees, then you can really start doing some things. But they're going to fight that. The agents are going to fight it. The players aren't going to want it. But that's where this has to go. They have to become employees where you can get some structure around contracts.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to watch. All right, so back in here with football right now, Rodney. Your forums on the message boards and everything with Tighter Insider are some of the most interesting because people are engaged. They are dialed in. Your Alabama people. For you to say that interest in a place like Alabama is slipping, that's out of disdain, disgust, and it's all about money. I can see that. So once the games start, though, have y'all noticed? I have. I know you have. That people forget about all that stuff. So looking ahead to the 2025 season, what are you hearing about season ticket sales at Alabama? And if you don't, I mean, if you could you find out for next week? I'm curious how, and also the sale of the luxury suites and everything like that. I'm curious how that's going.
Yeah, again, to be honest with you, I don't really keep up with that very much unless I just happen to hear it. Uh, I mean, obviously, there's still a lot of interest. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah,
but there is. I think there is a significant degree of people, fans, who are losing interest. It's not what the college football that they grew up following. Now, maybe that's an older, you know, 50 and up. I don't know. But there are a lot of people that are losing interest, and there are people that are, yeah, I see them all the time. Look, I'm just telling you the truth.
yeah.
They're saying I'm not investing my money in it anymore. I canceled my season tickets. I'm not going to invest in this. I'm not going to be a part of the collective. I'm not, so I see it.
Yep.
And I think there is, but you mentioned, I do think there is a degree of what you said that once the games start, people say, well, I'm going to watch the game, and yeah, they want Alabama to win still, but there is a degree of interest that's slipping.
Yeah, and you think about NASCAR. They pushed their fans away and tried to tell them what to do and everything. The NBA has pushed a lot of people away, and look what's happened. I mean, Adam Silver as commissioner of the NBA, he's no David Stern. I mean, it's not even close. Yancey, along the same line, what's your answer to that question I just asked Rodney?
Well, I think Ole Miss is in a little different situation because, Alabama was at the top of the mountain, for so long. And then you have the king retires,
Yeah.
um, or temporary retires. I still think he comes back out pretty soon. And it kind of got boring for Alabama. I mean, what's finishing top three for Bama? I mean, it's win it all or nothing, right? And
Yeah.
winning it all kind of got boring. And
You got
then,
numb. It got numb. I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't a feeling.
Yeah.
and then you have all of this that comes into play right after. And I think it was a perfect storm for Alabama. Then you have all this NIL and portal transfers everywhere, and the old guard, right? I
Yeah.
think Rodney hit it on the head. The older, the 50 and older crowd is like, man, I'm not into this. And but
Yeah.
at Ole Miss, we're seeing record numbers, radio show numbers, ticket sale numbers, athletic giving numbers, because they were hungry, right?
Yeah.
And they're winning, the footballs. It was disappointing season, make no doubt, but they see a bright future with Lane, and basketball Sweet 16. Baseball is back on track. So the fans at Ole Miss are hungry. And so I think it's just a little bit different parallel at Ole Miss right now.
Yeah, it is. Look, guys, we got to wrap up. And I want to say both of y'all, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, folks, Tighter Insider TV tonight with Gary Harris at 6:30 on YouTube. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Great discussion, man. And we'll get into more. I'm just curious, next week when we come back together, curious if y'all hear about season tickets and all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like, yeah, Alabama being on top of the world, you dip a little bit, and all of a sudden you go, you know what? We like being on top. You can get, as the Pink Floyd song, you can get comfortably numb, but you don't want to stay that way very long. But thank you both so much. And I'll come back and I'll wrap up with some messages about our sponsors. Landers Ford, Memphis.com, open Monday through Saturday, every day of the week except Sunday, okay? Service department opens at 7 a.m. They will pick you up, provide round-trip transportation. When you go out there, ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. Tell him you heard about him on SEC Sidelines. They'll take $500 off. Ask about the tariffs. What are they doing? Employee pricing. They're doing everything they can. Some good news came out this morning, folks, about auto parts. So you're going to be hearing about it. So get out there to Landers, Poplar, and Houston Levy, where Memphis and Collierville meet. Their name is everywhere. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And they're right down the street from our good friends at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. So get out there. They've got all kinds of boots, luggage, Filson, STS. They've got duck heads like you've never seen in your life. Kids' boots, women's clothes, great looking women's purses, women's dresses. They have a great selection. Barber, Filson, the Outdoor Life, HewlettandDunn.com. They will deliver anywhere. I was having some food from Panda Garden last night, Brendan. Got my fortune. It said, optimists believe we live in the best of times. Pessimists fear that is true. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out, as Mother Teresa said, can't do everything, we can all do something. And I'll see you tonight on the Buddy Martin Show at 9 p.m. Eastern on this channel. For executive producer extraordinaire, Brendan Martin. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, everybody.